My time as Teacher of the Year was humbling, and I have been affirmed by the opportunities to sit in spaces of change and discover new ways to serve education. Today, finalists, in a world where there is never enough, now is your time. Congratulations to this changemaker, Qorsho Hassan, as Minnesota's next Teacher of the Year. Girl, get up here so we can celebrate your joy.
Gotta take a second here. Okay. Salam, peace. I am so humbled and honored to be your Minnesota Teacher of the Year. It already sounds weird to say. Omar, I'm ready for you to pull a Kanye West move. Watch out. Super surprised that I'm here. I'm blessed, but I'm surprised because during my Zoom interview, my internet cut out, and it just gave me flashbacks to distance learning and all the Zoom conferences that I had with my students and the awkwardness of that. But this is, I feel like, what I would have said in the 5 minutes that I lost. So I'm grateful to be given this opportunity.
Qorsho Hassan is from Eagan and is the Minnesota Teacher of the Year. She is teaching 4th grade at Echo Park Elementary in District 196 this year, and she joins us right now. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Great to have you here. So I gotta ask you right off the top here. When they told you that you won that moment, what were you thinking?
Complete shock, surprise. I am in a cohort of phenomenal educators from across the state, and to be chosen from one of them is just, I'm still like soaking it in. And I also feel like what I do in the classroom comes naturally to me. Don't see it as something exceptional. So it's just a lot of shock, a lot of surprise, but ultimately a lot of feelings of gratitude and feeling like it felt right too.
I mean, I think I saw you put up your hands around your face. It was a real shock, wasn't it?
Absolutely. And I had my mother in front of me, and I thought, I heard my name and it didn't register until I saw her shoulders shake, and I knew that she was crying, happy tears. And then it set in. I was like, oh my God, that's my name.
That's cool. Now,
Yeah.
Since then, obviously you're now a world famous celebrity. Everybody wants to talk to you. Have you heard from your students? I mean, you just changed schools here, but have you heard from your students?
I heard from both my new school community and my previous school community, and my students have been texting and emailing me. Some of them think that I'm Teacher of the Month. So there's a little confusion as to why or how is recognized, which is okay by me. There's a lot of joy, there's a lot of happiness, and a lot of feelings of just glee, just a lot of glee. And I'm grateful for it.
And have you heard, obviously your mother was there with you. Have you heard from other family and friends?
I have. My family is scattered across the globe, and so it was interesting to see the impact of that as well. Getting calls from Dubai and from relatives in China, relatives in Europe and in Africa, and it just further, I think, cements why I was chosen, but also just how powerful my impact can be with this role.
So why do you think you were chosen?
I want to say that what I do in the classroom is something that is natural and normal to me, but I do see it as something that isn't generally seen. So for my students who look like me and who have similar lived experiences, I am a mirror to them that they can see themselves reflected in. And then for my students who need different perspectives, who maybe have grown up in insular environments, who maybe have never had a Black teacher, I am a window. And so I provide different perspectives, challenge their worldviews, and then really give them space to process their thoughts and their emotions.
So you've been teaching a few years. Have you been able to see how your students have come along because of your approach?
I wouldn't say I've been teaching for a few. I'm going into my 9th, but I've been teaching for a few years here in Minnesota, and it is drastically different from Ohio. In Ohio, I was teaching at a charter school that was predominantly Black. And so while I knew that I had a powerful impact, my students also just connected with me very easily. And so teaching in an integrated system here in Minnesota has allowed me to impact white students or students of color that weren't Black. And I think that that is different because I'm able to see just how I've changed their worldview, but also how receptive kids are to different experiences and different perspectives. We often don't give them a lot of credit, but they are flexible in their thinking, and I appreciate that.
Now, I have some teachers who are friends, who are family, and I know it's not the easiest job in the world. So why do you teach? Tell me about that.
I teach because I needed me when I was younger. I needed a teacher that affirmed my culture, my faith, and my background, all of my powerful intersectionalities. And I didn't have that. And I knew that I didn't connect with education as a younger child. And I remember thinking, I just want to be seen. I don't want to be invisible. I don't want to be othered. I don't want to be seen as the only Black student in the classroom. And so I made it a point to have my own classroom one day and make sure that every student in that classroom was seen for who they are and they were able to be their authentic and unapologetic self.
What are the challenges of teaching these days?
These days, with distance learning, I think it is, for me, it's the safest option, but it comes with a lot of barriers, especially for my students of color. I know that, with COVID-19, it's already creating these disparities within our economic system, but it's also creating even more racial disparities towards access and equitable education. And so I'm keeping that in mind alongside knowing that like with brick and mortar schools, we've had equity issues that have been long ignored. And so I'm grateful in some sense for COVID for kind of illuminating those issues, but I'm also hopeful that all educators and stakeholders are realizing how much students of color need and how to make our education system more equitable.
Tell me a little bit about the joy of teaching, because you seem very joyful about what you do. Where do you get the joy?
From my students. They are my hope. I can attest to this, especially during distance learning when I felt hopeless. I knew that relational teaching is my strength. I love being in the classroom. I love providing both emotional and social support for my students while having high expectations for them and, expecting rigorous work from them. And so that was diminished a little bit because I knew distance learning would provide some hurdles, but I also, in general, just get joy from my students, the energy that they bring, how they're able to be themselves in the classroom, how they hold me accountable, how they hold each other accountable, and then just really allowing joy in teaching. I think, as educators, we are prepared for the classroom to kind of manage it and to kind of have a strict lens when it comes to getting to know our students. And I have unlearned that. And I have unlearned from that. And because of that, there's a lot of joy in my teaching now.
I watched your speech and you talked about the interview you did that they did over Zoom, because that's the way we do everything these days. It's the way we're doing this one. You talked about the interview you did, and you had some problems with that. Tell me about that.
I did. Halfway through the interview, which by the way is 30 minutes. And in those 30 minutes, you're supposed to talk about your life and your teaching journey, which sounds near impossible, but all of the finalists did it. And halfway through that, my internet cut out. And I frantically had to find another way to get back on the Zoom call. And so I used my phone and just tried to finish it as gracefully as possible. But I did joke during the Zoom interview that was pretty much my distance learning experience. And it was very similar for my students as well. We had several like robotic voices and just people coming in and out of Zoom calls, frozen screens, all sorts of craziness. But it also made it funny. It provided some levity that was much needed. So
And while you were talking there, you froze just a second, just to prove that the internet is still not a perfect thing.
It's
So
not.
now you're Minnesota Teacher of the Year. There's a competition we're going to talk about in a moment for the national, but do you have duties that you have to perform now that you're Teacher of the Year? This is an Education Minnesota designation. What do you end up doing?
For now, it's a lot of speaking engagements. I'm talking to either aspiring educators or educators that have been in the field for a while. And I'm really excited because I do believe that my perspective is different, and that my platform will be rooted in my narrative growing up as a Somali American, growing up as a child of immigrants. So I'm hopeful that I will provide a lot of change in mindsets, but I'm looking forward to those speaking engagements and just sharing my voice on a larger platform.
And you do have the National Teacher of the Year competition coming up. I assume there's one from every state. You're going to be competing against at least 50 other people. How does that work?
I learned today that it's very similar to the Minnesota Teacher of the Year process, but it's just higher stakes and a shorter timeline. And there's a application process very similar. So I have to submit some essays, answer some questions, and then also do letter of recommendations. But there's an entire process after you're named as a finalist that sounds very terrifying and time consuming. So we'll see how it goes, but I am looking forward to applying and throwing my name in the hat.
And of course, you'll be doing this all just as school is starting and just as, I mean, we're starting in a hybrid situation, but we hear that it could change week to week. I mean, you're going to be very busy coming up here.
Yes, and I'm trying to have a lot of grace, not just for myself, but for my students and my families. I know everyone has different feelings regarding coming back to school. I'm going to do my best to meet the needs of all of my learners and my families. And while I am cautious that we are, going back on a hybrid plan, I also am really excited to meet my new school community and to get to know them.
Well, Qorsho, we wish you the best of luck here with the national competition. We are glad to claim you as one of our own here from Eagan and one of our own here from Minnesota. And best of luck here in the future. I hope that we can have another interview and congratulate you on winning the National Teacher of the Year.
Thank you so much.